Good evening. It's Artzenin and welcome back to another Insight. 2 updates. After 4 years of being banned from Facebook and my pages on Facebook, miraculously, with Elohim's miraculous divine interference, we got reversed. If you want to know what I'm talking about, I'll post the video link that can be exclusively found on Facebook. I don't want to post it everywhere because that might draw excess attention, and that's not what I want. Besides, it's the people on Facebook who need the apology, not the people on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. And anywhere else I decide to drop these vlogs. Second update. So I have a new iPhone Pro 16. Loving that. Got the tripod and the light. Loving that. Depending on the platform, the audio of what's recorded in the video, which does not sound overpowering or weird or poppy, etc., is not happening properly once it's uploaded on these platforms. TikTok sounds one way when Facebook sounds another way. YouTube is perfectly fine, sounds just like the one I record that's on the phone itself. So this is going to be the last Insight episode until my mic set will come. It'll go right here. They say these are great for this sort of activity. I'm looking forward to it. So I may have an insight for you next week. May not. We'll see. But I'm not going to continue to make these bad audio qualities. That's just going to deter people. Now, going into what you're here for. Kota. His past. Part 2. So last week we discussed his names and how he associated to these names, and they all meant something different. Now we're going to go further into Kota's past. I'm talking his childhood. A lot happened there. Kota, there are a few spoilers, but I'm going to save the major ones for Patreon because they actually get the full details and they have early access anyway, so bear with me because there's a lot to discuss in just 15 minutes. Kota, his parents were not good people, and he had to learn, due to the political statuses of his parents, he had to learn how to fight. He had to learn how to use, thanks to his mother, according to Snowclaw, who's over Kota's past, and Amber's past. Their mother taught chemistry, but for the wrong reason. Alchemy is in itself not witchcraft. It is a chemistry. It is a science, but depending on what type of alchemy we're talking about, that can be associated to witchcraft. Olympia wasn't doing that. This was just that, alchemy. So he knew how to create harmful and healing substances. And that was all fine and well for Kota, but he was never actually a son. It was more of the assistant or the co-worker at a job that Olympia couldn't even stand to be around. Yeah, that's right. Olympia couldn't stand to be around her own children. And she treated each of them like a object, a pretty object, something you can acquire or you can collect and you can admire it. And when you're done, you put it on the shelf, walk away, leave the room, never look at it until you want to again. So there was no love between him, the mother, Olympia, and his father. Which is unfortunate because I do think if there had been genuine affection somewhere, maybe Kota could have taken a different route. Maybe he wouldn't have wound up in Lee Ji-yu, or he very well could have wound up in Lee Ji-yu. But I do know this: if his mother had been a true mother and did not treat him as a inconvenience, as the worst type of hindrance that she's ever had to acquire, she made that boy with her husband and then dares complain that he's even in her life, but then will fully exploit him and work in the shadows to get what she wants through her children, through Kota specifically. Kota is the muscle. Kota inherited her brain smarts. So he was the shadow of Olympia in that way. Intellect was very high in him. Rather than praise him or try to just even get on his level and see what he wants to do with that intellect, she conditioned him. She basically told Kota, if you don't do what I say, I will unalive what is most important to you, because she knew it wasn't her. She knew it wasn't his father. It was his sister. And she had already unalived the fetus in her womb prior, and that messed with Kota really, really bad. You see, it was that event with Olympia that ultimately pushed Kota to the brink of no return of his innocence. He was barely hanging on. But when he came home and Olympia called him in the room, it's a very graphic scene. It's not going to pass on TikTok. It might pass on YouTube and Instagram, but not here. I will say this. She brought the jar home with the unalive child in it, and she said, look at it. Slammed it in front of him and his little sister and stomped on it, and it was just bad. It was traumatizing. And she looked them in the face, both of them, Kota and his sister, and said the terrible things that she did. Kota didn't know what it meant to be a son. He knew what it meant to be a war victim, a man of trauma at a very early age. This kid was fighting to protect him and Amber, his sister. He was fighting to protect their innocence that he knew for a fact it just didn't exist. And it's because he lost his ability to be innocent so early that he could enter in to these roles that were a lot darker and more heinous than what he ever imagined or visualized seeing himself do. But it was pretty easy. I mean, Olympia trained Kota to go from being the lab assistant, the co-worker, to going out in disguises and becoming a master of disguise. Hence is why his code name in Lee Jiu is Chameleon. He was taught very early on how to disguise his voice, how to disguise his face, not even going under the knife. And what I mean by that is plastic surgery. They coined that phrase. Kota was forced to just be everything but himself. Hence another reason why the name Chameleon fixed, because a chameleon is shifting colors. If you apply that from a psychological standpoint, if he's around people who are yellow, he's yellow. If he's around people who are red, he's red. If he's around people who are blue, he's blue. But what happens when all those types of colored people are in a room with him? Who is he? He can't tell you that because he's been too busy being all these other things so he can secure the people that he loves. So when Max, in his adult life, later finds out who he is as Chameleon, let's say Max was green. He was green with her. But who is Kota? Deep down, I think Kota, though he is comfortable in his skin and he knows who he is, he doesn't really know fully what to do outside of survival mode, outside of being all these different names and having to play all these different roles around all these important and bad people. I think if you were just to step back and part the curtains and look at Kota directly, he would be a flat, unproductive, boring character because he wasn't allowed to have a normal childhood. He wasn't allowed to be a son. He wasn't allowed to grow up and learn the way kids are supposed to learn. So by the time he's a full-blown adult, not only are these tendencies and mentalities of survival and behavior set and engraved, that's the only normalcy that he has. Isn't that sad, though? That is his normalcy. That's how Kota has to think and act for him to to make sense of himself. But when he's with Maxine, he's one color. He's one person. And that person doesn't know really what he wants out of life. In the previous vlog, I said he is aware of who he is. His opinions are his own. He's not confused. And he really isn't. Kota is not emotionally and psychologically deprived. He is sane. He knows what he's doing, why he's going about it the way he is. What he does not know, what he is not comfortable with facing, is himself. He has to figure out at some point in Snapshot who he is, what he truly wants out of life. Spiritually speaking, he does not take Elohim seriously. He believes if the Lord is real, if any deity is real, why would a deity be okay with the state of the world and all the evil thereof? Can't get into that because this is my author vlog. This is my show where I talk about insights of my characters to get into the spiritual messages that are in these books and what these characters respond to when it comes to spirituality and religions. You would have to follow my author account, not my author, my pastor account, or view our sermons on Rumble, because with my team at Unaligned Church, we talk about these things in depth. And the podcast that's coming, Full Throttle, we break all of this down. We go through apologetics. We really do a good job, in my opinion, of explaining that why factor. But at this point in the story for Kota, he doesn't understand that why factor. He doesn't want to. He is angry with any deity, with any one who wants to truly say a God exists. Maxine can get away with it, though. Maxine is a Christian, and she can get away with talking about that because, one, he's in love with her, and two, he sees it playing in her life, even though she's not a perfect Christian and she's struggling with her abuse of the bottle. Kota can still work with Maxine when she starts to reference the Lord and quote scriptures and talk about her past and how she went to church. He'll genuinely sit and listen to her, but she's the only person who can get away with this. She's the only person who can go there with him, if that makes sense. Because Kota is convinced that everyone is delusional and they are making up their deity. They are making up a religion. They are making up these rules and laws to keep everybody in an orchestrated, organized, mind-controlling kind of culture. And he's not about that, which makes sense because in his past, that is exactly what happened. Only Olympia didn't hide behind a deity. Olympia just simply, in a way, declared herself a deity over her children. She was the deity in that regard. So his reaction to holiness and scripture, God, Christ, or anybody would be very stiff and narrowed. And another interesting thing to note about Kota is in his past as a child, he wasn't allowed to fall in love. He was Olympia, but also his own father basically told him, don't let us catch you falling in love. You're not allowed. He did not understand that, but he complied. This was wrong of the parents to put on their child. He was 9 or maybe 8 when they made this declaration. And next week, when we go into part 3 of his past, I'm going to further expand and explain why that plays such a huge part in why he is hesitating to even take Maxine as his mate and future wife. It's his DNA. It's his blood. I haven't revealed the blood of who the Fierces are. He is of a different race. And Maxine doesn't know that. He didn't even know that. But it's so powerful that if he mates with somebody, it could get pretty bad. It could get pretty bad. And this isn't Olympia. It's not her blood that did this. It's his daddy. And the way this works, it's every other generation that will get the full power of this genetical, I call it the curse. See you next week. Much love. Bye.